Okay, welcome. And you can see the title, How to Get a Nobel Prize in Physics. Well, I mean, there is no standard way of getting a Nobel Prize. Actually, when you look at the record, it's striking how the different prizes are different. But let's get going. First of all, I would like to acknowledge Carl Grandin, who is head of the Center for the History of Science, and he is the one who is standing there. And I have actually, in this talk, I have used a lot of material that he has written, so that's why I want to give acknowledgement to him and to the Nobel Archive. And here we are actually standing at the archive. And I really love to sit and read all the papers. Well, here is Alfred Nobel, born in Stockholm, Sweden. But he was really very international. I mean, his family moved to Russia, to the Russian Empire, but he was also in Italy and France and so on. And he was born 1833 and died 1896. He had no children. He made a fortune on his invention of dynamite because this made a big difference. And he earned an enormous amount of money, but no children. And he decided that the money he had should go to five prizes. And so he wrote his will, Testamente. As you can see here, it was written in 1895 in Paris. And this is all we have. And it has been the problem for every Nobel Committee since the beginning to try to interpret what he really meant with his writing. If we look at the prizes, you can see that the person shall have made the most important discovery or invention within the field of physics. Physics is mentioned first. And we keep that tradition very strictly. For example, handing out the prizes and everything, physics always have to come first. Chemistry is a little bit different. The most important chemical discovery or improvement. So you can see here the chemists, they can actually award the prize to somebody who has improved something. Whereas in physics, it has to be the first either discovery or invention. And I don't talk about the other prizes, but as you know, one of the prizes, the Peace Prize, is handed out in Oslo. The Medical Prize, Medicine and Physiology by Karolinska Institute. And the Academy of Sciences handing out the prizes in physics and in chemistry. And we have the meeting in this very room. Actually, this is where we take the decision. So that's the prize awarding institution, the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. And this is in the will, so this Alfred Nobel had already decided. And the first prize was awarded in 1901. And I will talk more about the Nobel committees, but they are sort of responsible for proposing the candidates. But the decision is taken by the Academy in plenum. Here you can see the year, the Nobel Prize year. It goes on actually all the time. So we ask for nominations, that's usually in September. The nominations should be submitted before January 31st the next year. But the work is going on basically all the time with asking for special reports from experts and yeah, you can see here that the February to May, the committees has meeting and then they commission special reports from experts. Expert, I mean, on a very high level, but not Nobel Prize candidates. So that's, of course, important. Between June and August is the main part of the job going on. The Nobel Committee is typically 5 members, but it can also be a joint member, so that we are sometimes 6, 7. It depends a little bit on the prizes that makes the top list, so to say. We sometimes need to bring in experts from the academy. Yes, as I said, I mean, the nominations, they are kept secret for 50 years. And what we do is that we send out confidential forms to persons who are competent and qualified to nominate. And I can assure you, you cannot nominate yourself. Then it goes down in the trash. A person who is not nominated a particular year cannot be considered for the prize that year. And you cannot award a prize to somebody who died. So the trick is to stay alive as much as you can. As I mentioned, I mean, the nomination forms are sent out in September. Some numbers, I mean, typically we send these letters to about 3,000 people. Professors at universities all around the world. Nobel laureates are always, can always nominate. And the professors of physics or chemistry in the Nordic countries can also always nominate. But then we have different universities. We ask different universities to make nominations, select somebody in the Department of Physics or Chemistry to nominate. But we also have a list of people that we decide are highly qualified, and they are often very active to nominate, so that's an important list of people. I guess it's obvious that nominations from Nobel laureates, that carries some weight, of course. Then March to May, consultation with experts. So we ask for special reports by expert, and these reports can be of different character. I mean, sometimes the Nobel Committee feels that, okay, we need to understand better this particular subfield of physics. And then it can be a rather general type of report. But it can also be much more specific. I mean, maybe we have to decide priorities. And the thing is that we can only award 3 persons in physics every year. That's the maximum number. And we can only award 2 different fields of physics. So there are limitations and boundary conditions that are sometimes quite difficult, because you know that you cannot give the prize to more than 3 people. But there are certainly more people than 3 each year that are deserving. So that's sort of a headache. You know you have to take a decision, but you also know that some people will be very disappointed. Usually the way we think about it is that we try to identify areas where we see that there has been breakthroughs. And then when we have selected a number of areas that we want to award, then we start with the process of looking into people who could be the most qualified for a prize in these different areas. Then June, August, that's a very busy time, because then we have to write a thick report that will be submitted to the Academy. The report is signed by all members of the committee, 5, 6, 7 members. In September, we have submitted now the recommendation to the Academy, and then we have 2 meetings in what's called the physics class or physics section of the Academy. This is a larger group of people, and the Nobel Committee 6, 7. In the physics class, I think we are about 40 something. And usually the meetings in September are very popular to attend. We also invite what are called honorary physicists. people from the other classes, mathematics, chemistry, biology, and so they are all, we call them honorary physicists, and they are welcome to the first meeting in September, but to the second meeting when we take a decision, then we cannot have the honorary physicists. So, but this is very useful actually, because let's say that we have people in geophysics, mathematics, and they can participate in the meeting, and we can consult them, we can have special meetings with them. So it's really very useful to try to exploit the full capacity of the academy. Of course, we cannot go outside the academy. So if you're not member of the academy, then everything is kept secret. But I saw we have a very new member now in the physics class, Sara Strömberg, and she will of course participate in the meetings in September. Yeah. Then nowadays the final meeting is in early October, but I will show you examples earlier. The decisions were usually taken in November, but these days it's in October. And this is a final decision. The minutes from this meeting is very brief, so it's very difficult to understand. Sometimes, the Nobel Committee comes with a proposal, and then the Academy decides something different. But it's very difficult from the protocol to understand what happened really during the meeting, because it only says very brief, and this is according to the Nobel statutes. And then once the decision is taken, then usually what we do then is to go to another room, call the Nobel laureates, try to get in touch with them, so that they will hear directly from the Nobel Committee that they have been awarded the prize. And this is quite fun actually to hear their reactions. For example, it was in 2023 we had a Nobel laureate, a French-Swedish woman, Anne Lullier. And we tried to call her, couldn't get in touch with her. And then we called her husband, who is also a member of the Academy. And he said, she's teaching, so you have to wait until, I don't remember exactly, but maybe 10-15 minutes or so. And then we called her, told her that she had been awarded the prize, and then, now I have to go back and teach. And here you see the press conference, which takes place then directly after we have called the Nobel laureates. It's usually very crowded these days with journalists. So it's almost impossible even for members of the Nobel Committee to get a seat in this room. But here you can see, what you see here is, this was in 2018. And here is my colleague, friend Olga Butner. She was chairing the committee at that time. And I was selected at the press conference to explain the prize in maybe a rather short, brief presentation, maybe 5 minutes or so. And this is taken very seriously. I remember, I think it was this year, they usually have like a dress rehearsal a few days before we have the press conference. And I remember at that time they had consulted a person who was an actress. And my first presentation, it was total disaster. But of course, with her help, I could improve. So that's why we have these rehearsals. And in the middle, you see the permanent secretary of the Academy at the time, Göran Hansson, who is always the one who is making the presentation. Now we have, for the first time in the history of the Academy, we have a female permanent secretary, Ellen Moons, physicist. And here you can see, here I am now dressed up and making this presentation. And which is, I think usually consider this to be the important moment, because this is for the first time when we tell, and of course it's broadcasted on the web and everything, so that so it's an important moment. And then the laureates are coming in December to receive the Nobel Prize, always on December 10, the date when Alfred Nobel died. And it has been discussed sometime, if you go a long time back. I mean, December, is that really the best time to come to Stockholm? Maybe one should come in June instead. But they made an attempt once to have June 1st as the date, but it didn't work out very well because there was death in the royal family, so they couldn't participate, and so it was not a very good situation, and they decided to go back to December 10, and it has remained December 10 ever since. And here is the concert house in Stockholm. That's where the award ceremony takes place. I think ever since 1926 or something like that, it has always been in the concert house. And here you can see we are marching in. For the ladies, here is Eva Olsson, Ellen Måns. They always have to think about fixing the hair before the big occasion. As you can see, I don't have that problem. And here you see the three laureates, Nobel here in the back, and Zeilinger, Anton Zeilinger, John Clauser, and Alain Aspect is coming now to be awarded the prize for the studies of Bell's theorem and entanglement. And I noticed, here is the royal family. Of course, the king is always giving the prize to and later on Crown Princess Victoria will do the same. But the king either has to abdicate or he of course eventually he will die, obviously. But but it's sort of a tradition that instead of having the prime minister or something, so I think people like this. And here you see I gave the presentation speech on December 10 in the concert house. Of course, you have to dress up in a tuxedo, and here I have my Ukrainian medals. I'm a foreign member of the Academy of Sciences in Ukraine. And the Nobel laureates, you can see here, they are very serious looking. I mean, this is a very important moment for them. I mean, Anton Zeilinger, who is sitting here, I mean, he is normally a very, lively person and so on, but here he's very serious here. This is just a few minutes before they will get the prize from the king. And then, of course, the big banquet in the evening with the honorary table here, and I think probably like 1,000 guests or something like that. So this is shall we say, the surface of the prize. Now I will show you reality. This is reality. And the reason I'm sitting at home at the kitchen table, and because we cannot do the Nobel work in our offices because everything is confidential. So usually during the summer, the whole kitchen table is occupied by me, and my wife is the only one who can see what's really the work that we do. And it's really a lot of work, I can tell you, a lot of work. But now she wouldn't have to stand this anymore since I'm not a member. So I will give you 2 examples of Nobel Prizes. And I was thinking quite a lot what prizes I should choose. I mean, there are a lot of interesting prizes, but since this is a public lecture, I thought I should select 2 persons that are quite well known, I think, to the general audience. I mean, everybody knows Einstein, and most people would also know Marie Curie. And it's quite nice to be able to talk about a woman who was awarded a prize. I will show you actually 2 prizes. Because now, in recent 2 years, I have been studying 2 cases of 2 very distinguished women that were not given the prize. The first one was Lise Meitner, and the second one was Madame Wu. And it's really, it's almost depressing to go through and see how could the committees miss to award Lise Meitner and Madame Wu. But here, Marie Curie, so that's why it's nice to talk about her. And she was born in Warsaw, which was then part of the Russian Empire, but she worked in Paris on radioactivity, which was a new branch of science at the time. Radioactivity was discovered by Henri Becquerel, and so he shared the prize with Pierre and Marie Curie. What's rather puzzling, and this may come like a contradiction, but there was not a single nomination submitted for Marie Curie. Not a single nomination in the year she received the prize in 1903. And the reason is that a nomination was submitted by Bouchard, who was foreign member of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, so he had permanent right to make nominations. And his nomination arrived on February 4, too late, but it was counted as a nomination for 1903. And that solved the problem. Without that nomination, it would have been very difficult. Okay, let's see. There was clearly a competition between physics and chemistry concerning this new area, radioactivity. Is it physics or is it chemistry? The Nobel Committee for Physics suggested as a citation for Marie and Pierre Curie the discovery of the spontaneously radioactive substances. But the chemist managed to persuade the Academy to change this. And now you will see that there are some subtleties. The chemist didn't like this substances. This is chemistry. So they managed to change the citation in recognition of the extraordinary services they have rendered, Pierre and Marie Curie, to their joint researches on the radiation phenomena discovered by Henri Becquerel. So instead of having substances, chemistry, radiation phenomena, physics, which made it possible for the chemists to award the prize 1911 in chemistry to Marie Curie. Pierre Curie had already passed away. There was an accident in Paris in, I think, 1906 or so. But in recognition of her services to the advancement of chemistry by the discovery of elements radium and polonium, by the isolation of radium and the study of the nature and so on. So without this change, it would have been very difficult to award Marie Curie in chemistry, because then she had already been awarded for substances. So sometimes, and I think this is important when people ask about the prizes, read the citation very carefully. I mean, here in this case, it's of course much more than 50 years, so now we can go back and see, but for more recent prizes, it's not possible to go into the discussion exactly how the committee did the work. But what I usually say is that read the citation, because we spend a lot of time thinking about formulation of the citation. Okay, so she won, and she's the only person. She was the first woman to be awarded a Nobel Prize, that was 1903, and she's the only person who has been awarded a prize both in physics and chemistry. as I said. And here you can see the two pictures from the Nobel webpage. This is the one for the physics prize, and here she's a little bit older here for the chemistry prize. Now we go to, well, here I show you an interesting person who is in the middle, not me to the left, but the person in the middle. This is Sir Michael Atiyah, who was, I would say, the most outstanding mathematician during the past century. He won everything, the Fields Medal, the Nobel Prize, and here he's closing in on 88 or something. He passed away a few years after this picture was taken in Singapore in 2018, I think. And I was sitting next to him during dinner, and I asked him, in your opinion, who is the greatest physicist? And he was absolutely clear. Einstein. So, and now I switch a little bit. The photoelectric effect. You bombard a metal surface with the photons, and what was puzzling when this was discovered was that it was much more important to have the correct frequency of the radiation, not the intensity. Even with the wrong frequency, you could increase the intensity as much as you wanted, nothing happened. And this seemed to be a contradiction to physics. The one who explained this phenomena was Einstein in 1905. So if we look at Einstein's contributions to physics, the special theory of relativity in 1905, the photoelectric effect also in 1905, there he had also a few other papers on the Brown motion and so on, but these are, I think, the most important. And then the general theory of relativity in 1915. So there was a conflict in the Nobel Committee. Alvar Gullstrand, who is sitting here, so he's on the left, he had won the prize in medicine or physiology in 1911. But concerning the optics of the eye. And he was very much against that Einstein should be awarded a prize for relativity. Carl Wilhelm Osen, who later played a very important role for many years in the Nobel Committee, he realized that he will never be able to persuade Gullstrand for the prize to relativity. So that was the conflict in the Nobel Committee. I don't really know. Gullstrand wrote 2 special reports about the theory of relativity, and what I really want is to have a really expert to read these 2 special reports and see if Gullstrand was totally out of, or if he had some correct analysis. I suspect that he had misunderstood the theories. I think Carl Wilhelm Osen understood it better, but he also realized that we will never be able to award Einstein for the theory of relativity, the 2 theories. So instead, and you can see here that if we look at the nominations, I mean the first nomination here in 1910, and then it increased rapidly in 1921, 1922, because there was this solar eclipse, and the bending of light was confirmed according to Einstein's theory, and not to Newton's theory. And this was, probably some of you have read Abraham Pay's book, Subtle is the Lord. And I remember when he was in Stockholm many years ago, and he said that this was the birth of the Einstein legend. Because in the Royal Society in London, the president of Royal Society had to admit that Einstein was correct and his prediction of the bending of light was correct. Newton's theory was not correct. But at the same time, he explained that I don't understand this theory. So But as you can see here, I mean, it was a tremendous pressure to award Einstein the prize, and you may wonder why is this 1923? Well, 2 nominations that came too late. So the brilliant move from Osen was that he coupled together. He nominated Einstein for the photoelectric effect, and then he also could convince the committee that one should award also Niels Bohr. Niels Bohr in 1913 had proposed a new theory for the atomic structure, and it's amazing how this model has survived to our days. I mean, it was realized already in 1925 that Bohr's model was not correct. But you see, the Atomic Energy Agency use it. Probably some of you have also seen the Big Bang Theory, where he also has this model with... So what Osen managed to do was that he sort of coupled these two together. So the prize was announced on the same day. Einstein Prize was for 1921. You can, I forgot to mention that, but you can, if you decide not to award the prize a certain year, you can postpone the award 1 year. And this is what happened in 1921. They could not agree. And in 1922, the committee had 2 prizes and could award 1 prize to Niels Bohr, here, and 1 prize to Einstein. And I don't know if you can see this, but it's quite interesting how this is Dagens Nyheter, the national newspaper in Sweden. And here it already says that Einstein was not awarded for the theory of relativity. So I think Einstein is the only person where they explicitly told that you didn't get the prize for this. His most important. And here it's also announced that Niels Bohr got the prize. There were actually 2 chemists who had been working on isotopes also awarded at the same time. So the presentation speech on December 10, 1922 was given by Svante Arrhenius in Swedish. And just for fun, I went to the Le Prix Nobel and read in Swedish, because he gave the talk in Swedish. I read how much time he spent on the theories of relativity. 35 seconds. And this is everything. The theories of relativity was never awarded a prize, which is quite surprising. I know that there was a nomination sometime in the 1930s by Eddington for his contribution to the theories of relativity, but the committee felt no, if we're going to award somebody, it has to be Einstein. But Einstein was never nominated again. So probably people felt, okay, Einstein, we can check, he already has the prize. But Einstein was not present here at the ceremony because he was on his way to Japan. Then came the next thing. Yeah, here is Einstein's diploma, by the way, that with a rather strange formulation that even if the theories of relativity turn out to be wrong, we still award Einstein for his contribution to theoretical physics, in particular for the photoelectric effect. But he got his revenge, Einstein. So what happened was that this same person, Svante Arrhenius, he proposed that Einstein should give his Nobel lecture, not in Stockholm, but in Gothenburg, Göteborg. And this was quite controversial because there were 3 things. People here in Stockholm argued that, of course, a Nobel lecture should be given in Stockholm. they didn't succeed. It should also be given less than 6 months after the award. July 11, 1923 was more than 6 months. And here comes Einstein's revenge. He only talked about relativity, nothing about the photoelectric effect. And this was the third problem people had. Of course, if you're awarded a Nobel Prize, you should talk about what you have been awarded a prize for. But Einstein didn't care, of course. And this was I think it was, they had a big celebration here in Gothenburg in 1923, 200 years. And I think the king, Swedish king, is sitting here, and Arrhenius somewhere here also. So that was Einstein's revenge, eventually. So Kalle Grandin, that I showed you in the beginning when we were in the archive, he likes to say that actually Einstein was awarded 3 times. 1921, that's the year his prize is always associated with. 1922, when he actually got the prize, and 1923, when he went here to give his Nobel lecture. Okay, that was what I wanted to say.
I have a comment.